Super excited to be here today. Awesome 2 days. Tons of awesome calls to action, awesome content, as Ali just said. So I'm Adrian Brady-Cesana. I am the founder of CX Chronicles and the host of the CX Chronicles podcast. I was in all of your guys' seats for many, many years. I worked in New York City at a plethora of different venture capital-backed startups, building customer experience and customer success teams from the ground up. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what goes into building a team, what goes into finding the right toolkits, how do you build a playbook or a process set that's going to allow you to scale and to manage everything, and then feedback. I spent a ton of time thinking about customer feedback and thinking about employee feedback to really try to drive innovation and to really make sure that we were doing everything we could on the CX and the CS side to build an awesome experience for our customers. CX Chronicles podcast was something that, guys, I went to all these events in New York City, and we would do like these CX and CS meetups. And at all the different companies I was at, the executive leadership teams always had slightly different lenses in terms of how they thought about CX, how they thought about CS, what they were willing to invest in, what they didn't want to hear about at all. And I started the CX Chronicles podcast because I wanted to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And I started reaching out to all these different CX and CS leaders from across the world. And I asked them about what we call the 4 CX pillars: team, tools, process, and feedback. And at this point now, guys, we're getting closer to almost 200 episodes. We do a weekly show where we have these people coming on, and it gets to highlight not only all the awesome things that they're doing with their business and their team and their customer base, but some of the stuff that we were learning about these last 2 days, right? Because there is a tremendous amount of granular things that we're constantly thinking about as CX and CS leaders every single solitary day of our lives. And I wanted to showcase some of that. So super pumped to be here with Yanique and Kenny today. And huge shout out and thanks to the Churn Zero team for having us and for throwing this awesome batch the last 2 days.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yanique Grant, and my podcast is Navigating the Customer Experience. My background is I am a customer service trainer. I'm also a mystery shopper, a certified mystery shopper. So I was certified with Mystery Shopping Providers Association, which I'm sure many of you would know is an international body that governs mystery shopping. So my company does market research as well as customer experience training, and it was out of that Navigating the Customer Experience was born because of my passion for customer experience. And like Kenny and Adrian, I do interview as well many thought leaders, global leaders in the CX and CS space. We are about 170 plus episodes in 6 years. We've been recognized not just by Churn Zero, but other international organizations for our customer experience podcast. And I'm happy to be here with you guys to share as it relates to customer experience. I've learned a whole lot since I've been here the last day and a half, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm going to turn over to Kenny.
Those are a lot of podcast episodes. I just want to call it out. Podcasting it's not real glamorous to start it up, so it's incredible to hear those numbers from these two. My name is Kenny Groom. I am the owner of Beyond Normal Media. So we offer media solutions to startups, and through that, I started the podcast. And my audience is typically founders, underserved founders, minority, Black, Latino, that need they need some more spotlight on their business. It's been amazing. I started my podcast during the pandemic, and so having those conversations with different founders has led me to events like this, having conversations with different types of investors. Ultimately, I want to make sure that I use this platform to see more founders of color have their businesses funded. And so, again, like the other panelists have said, Churn Zero, this is an amazing event. We appreciate you guys for having us, and we're looking forward to having this podcast panel here.
Amazing. Okay, so we decided to take an approach for this panel discussion to kind of share with you, I would say, a highlight of the different sessions that we've all attended over the last day and a half. And one of the greatest highlights for me, I'll start off, has been the session that I had with High Logic, right? With Kristen and Erin. Did I get your names right? Okay. So community was a big thing for me. I wasn't even aware that it literally had a name. It's definitely something that as a consumer I do if I have an issue, if I need to troubleshoot something, and I'm sure many of you would have the same experience. If something happens with your phone, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, you probably go to your computer first to search how to troubleshoot it. And if there's a community that exists, then you can literally find a solution on your own. I don't think we're any different from the other 7 billion people that are in this world in terms of trying to find a solution on our own. And so that session was amazing for me. So in terms of what our topic is, the future of customer success, I do believe that organizations really need to look at their communities for their organizations, need to ensure that they build out platforms that will allow their customers to have that resource so that they can be able to help themselves. People are so busy, and you heard it from Jim this morning, where he said time is so valuable. You literally don't have enough time to be reading these lengthy emails, don't have enough time to have these lengthy conversations. So the quicker you're able to get the answers that you're looking for, because that's what your companies were created for anyway, to solve problems, why not ensure that those solutions are in a place where your customer is going to be looking for it anyway? So that was a big highlight for me, everything that they said in that session. And I'm definitely going to carry it back to Jamaica, because that's where I'm from. How many of you have ever been to Jamaica before? Amazing. Nice. All right. So it's a wonderful island in the Caribbean. I'm sure you've heard of it before. We're known for having the fastest people in terms of, the 100 meters in the world. We're known for reggae music. We're known for good food. So if you've never been before, I definitely encourage you to come. And of course, customer experience is one of the things that Jamaica's bedrock is built on, because people come because when they come, Jamaica, no problem, man, right? You just come, you relax, and you have a great time. So it was really, really great to hear from HighLogic. So I'm going to hand over to Adrian on his highlights. I think he's going to talk to us about coaching and management, and that would come out of his experience as well.
100%. And I come from a very different place, guys. I come from Buffalo, New York. So there you go. All right. So cold, freezing cold, opposite of Jamaica. People's not so fast, but so when I came here today, or came here this week, guys, I was really, really interested in digging into some of the different presentations and really kind of looking for calls to action, right? Because our space and our industry, it's complex, it's deep, it's advanced. All of us have different things that we're focused on in our businesses, in our teams. All of us have different toolkits that we're using. And then all of us have different goals that we're trying to solve for our customers, right? And our teams, right? So I think for me, some of the big things that I was really kind of excited to dive into had to do with how can we as CX and CS leaders, how can we actually tee up our teams with those CTAs so that number one, we're driving employee experience for sure. Like you're practicing what you preach in terms of making sure that our teams are set up for success. But some of the best teams in the world are the ones that are building customer experience and building customer success for the customer. So I think the things are hand in hand. A few of the big highlights that I saw, Jordan and Cheek, you guys did an awesome job getting into the weeds in terms of, I think one of the most difficult things for CX and CS leaders, especially as you're coming up the ranks, how do you have really difficult conversations with your executive team around the things that you need to be able to be successful, right? And some of it's obvious, some of it's pretty clear. You know what tools you need, you know what types of teams you need or what type of roles you need within it. I think process and feedback's a little bit different, because I think as a business evolves, I think you start to learn some of those answers and it gets a little bit more crisp. But I loved what you and She put together, because you gave us a bunch of different ideas around the ways that CX and CS leaders need to have those difficult conversations. Plus, and then I know that Abby and Ali have been talking about this all week as well, but like you have to have the data in front of you to get your executive team support and buy-in for some of the things that you need. So love that session. The other big one that I want to call out, we just got out of it this afternoon, but Abby and Ali talked about how you make customer success and product best friends or BFFs. This is something that you would think, like saying out loud, this should just be like a natural relationship. You'd think that the people that are taking care of your customers and the people that are building your product talk all the time and share the same reports and use the same tools. How many folks in this room feel like they have that type of a relationship within their own business today? That's crazy, right? That's crazy, unless everyone's just really, really tired from the week's events. But like, I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for like emerging businesses in today's world, is to get your CS and your product and your DevOps super, super tight, right? Your users and your customers are showing you the things, or telling you these things, or explaining to you the things that could theoretically make their experience that much better. So a couple things that I saw this week that I was really, really thrilled to be a part of. And I really, I just think there were some incredible presentations and calls to action that we all saw this week. So, Kenny, what about you, sir?
Hey, let's stay there for a second with what you just said. that customer success BFF with product, right? We're not all going to be BFFs all the time. We understand that, right? But there's certain things that you can do when building that relationship with product, marketing, some of the other function support. I think ESG had a session yesterday where it was just a simple check in the box on certain things so you can really understand how your relationship is, right? We spend a lot of time with product and marketing from a customer success standpoint. So you got to make sure, you go through, have genuine conversations with them. Like, we're not always going to agree when it comes to resources and making sure that you get stuff done. We know that that's always a struggle, especially in the SaaS space from the founders that I talk to. But you got to be willing to have those conversations and customer success. What I'm excited for the future of, I'm excited because customer success is in a really good spot to own those conversations moving forward. Like, we can be the ones that bridge the gap. We can be the ones that have the uncomfortable conversation that leads to the business moving forward. And so that's just something there that I want to make sure, because you calling out those sessions there, that's exciting to see that we're at a spot now with customer success where we can have those conversations.
100%. One last thing on this point, guys, too, is there's a lot of talk in our space about, building your voice of customer task force or building your VOC dashboards and reporting, right? And I think it's amazing how many of the executives that come on my show, I'll ask them, I'll say, so how are you like democratizing or sharing all the information you have? Think about it. Like, some of the products and services that we're all building and that we're all leading, you've got so much information, it's not even funny. Not only do you have some of the transactional relationship feedback, you've got some of the usability-based feedback. You've got all of these nuggets of gold around how you could think about. We've talked about ICPs and customer segments for at length, but to not have a singular place where people in the organization, specifically on CS and product as well, can go and look and find these things and see the good, the bad, the ugly, the opportunities, the strengths, the weaknesses. It's crazy, right? This is and to Kenny's point, I love that Abby also called out a lot of future product leaders are being farmed in CS. So this is interesting to me because I do think, to Kenny's point, once you start talking to customers and you start getting comfortable with having customer conversations or difficult customer conversations, plus how to build product and how to build process inside of that, that's powerful. That's a dangerous place to be in a good way. So, Yanique, any thoughts?
I think one of the future of customer success as well, in addition to what you were saying in terms of those conversations with customer and product, is ensuring that the teams that you have that you're working with, they have a genuine passion to fix the customer's problem. So they're enthusiastic. They have great buy-in to what the product is. I think I was in one of the sessions where it said that, you don't want to be the one to throw your product team under the bus. So it shouldn't be a case where you're talking to the customer and you're like, oh, we're not sure if we can do that, because at the end of the day, you're still one organization. And when the customer is upset or frustrated with your company, they're not going to argue and cuss you as an individual. They're actually going to take it out on the entire organization. They're going to say, whatever your company name is, we're upset with them. Not that we're upset with Ashley or we're upset with John or Mary. And so I just think it's important that at the end of the day, you're passionate about your product. You believe in your product. You've used your product. You know how the product works. You see the value in it, and it comes out in your conversation and the words that you use, because people can tell if you don't really believe what you're selling or you're not 100% behind what you're selling. They can fully pick it up from the energy, the language that you use. So I think in addition to what Adrian has said, it's important for you to have that enthusiasm, believe in what you're about, and ensure that that comes across in your communication with your team as well as with your customers.
So
that was something just popped in my head as you were talking there. The session, I believe it was the first session that kicked everything off, the C and the CEO. And there was a employee NPS in there. And as you were just talking, I was thinking if your employees don't believe in the product, that's going to show in a lot of ways, right? It's going to show in the conversations they're having with clients. But do you as the leader, do you have the gumption? Do you have it in your gut to go to your team and say, are we messing up? What can we change? And so seeing a NPS, which is usually an external metric, seeing that flipped on its head a little bit, those are the types of things that I think CS customer success is bringing to the table that'll put us in a good spot moving forward.
Indeed. And it kind of supports what Gabby was saying yesterday at her keynote, that they measure the NPS, not their value for the NPS is not just on the external, but also on the internal. I tell all of my clients every time I do customer service training that poor customer experience is a symptom of what's happening internally.
Yeah.
So if your customers are continually having poor experiences, whether it's with your product or with your service, and it's an ongoing thing, it's a consistently poor experience, it's really just a symptom of something that's happening internally. So if you don't fix the inside, then the outside cannot be fixed magically. Okay, there's no magic wand or pixie dust that you can sprinkle that's automatically going to transform it. And so you really have to look internally to identify what are the pain points that your team is having, what are some of the opportunities that you can look at to improve on, whether it be from an internal perspective with the product or whether it be with the service. And you have to ask the questions. That's why the feedback is important. And you need to allow that feedback to be received in such a way that it rolls off of your back like water on glass, and you don't become a sponge and absorb the negative, because you're going to have to accept that constructive feedback. You may not agree with it, but perception is reality to the person that perceives it. So if that person's reality is that this was a bad experience, I don't agree with how this product works, I expected this feature to do this, that's their reality. And it probably is based on what you had marketed and advertised. And so that's the reality of their experience. And we need to get to the place where we don't take that personally. We look at the feedback objectively and look at how we can make it better for our customers going forward.
You know, one of my favorite things to do inside of customer journey mapping, and how many folks here are involved in customer journey mapping with their businesses? Good, a lot of you. Okay. One of the things that I think is one of the easiest ways of kind of sort of mirroring what Yanique is saying is you spend a lot of time on the actual customer journey. How many of you guys actually, outside of just highlighting like your customer consternation points, how many of you guys put your employee consternation points right below that? Right? And that's huge. And then think about it. When you see, as you're going through your customer journey from awareness to consideration to conversion to onboarding to account management and loyalty and retention, all the fun stuff that we're all thinking about, you see literally the 2 or 3 things that line up in every one of those segments. So then theoretically from a prioritization perspective, it becomes pretty clear to see what your customers and your employees, who typically know your customers better than anybody because they're just doing so many at-bats every single solitary day, you see what you should be focusing on, or you see what you should be prioritizing, or you start to get a little bit more information around which things might have the highest ROI, right? Both internally and externally. So just some extra thoughts to add on to Yanique.
Any other thoughts, Kenny?
Yeah, I was thinking of BABS.
BABS.
There
goes another acronym.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest, but just to cut you, Kenny, since I've been here in the last 2 days, at this conference, I've learned so many new acronyms. I have to be constantly Googling every time I hear someone use an acronym. And I don't know if it's something you're aware of. I guess it's because you're around persons that are in that space. But just as a BFO, a blinding flash of the obvious, some of these acronyms are not common across the globe. It may be common in the United States of America, but they're not common across the globe. So just be mindful of that when you're doing your presentations, especially if you're going to share these things on a global level, that people know what you're talking about. Because if they don't know what you're talking about, then they're going to check out, similar to what Jim said this morning. So
you want me to say
what does BABS mean? Yeah.
Full pronunciation.
Where is this going to be? Big ass book shift.
Okay.
Sorry, but there's when you said the at bats, it's really important that you give every person within your org the right amount of at bats for them. In situations like that BABS, I'm gonna call it BABS now, what was a good exercise to go through when, okay, we got to make a change. Maybe we're not hitting the number that we need to. What can we do as an organization to line everybody up the right way? And that can be a painful process, but as you involve the right people, the right stakeholders throughout the process, you end up with more people on your team hitting their quota, people being put in the right position. But that is not an easy thing to do. So I commend that group that had that BAB session, because those conversations, they're not easy to have, but as customer success has more of a revenue generating purpose within the business, we got to be able to have those. We got to be able to make those decisions in a fast manner.
Big time. I think what Kenny just said, guys, makes me think of one other piece. And I didn't actually hear a lot of this week, but as CX and CS leaders, we are often tasked with not only chronicling and documenting and capturing all of the things that are happening with our customers or with their users, but what Kenny just said is spot on, which is like, we're some of the biggest advocates internally for spreading tribal knowledge, right? Or for spreading things across the company, across different silos, or building bridges, however you guys want to refer to it. And it's interesting because I think that in the future of CX and CS, that's not going to go away. We're going to continue to have a big bulk of the answers. We're going to have a ton of the ideas around what people love about us, what people hate about us. And then I think the other piece too, and then Abby and Ali, like earlier in you guys' session when you're talking about there is a certain level of effort required to be able to do some of that rub off, right? Whether it's product and CS, whether it's finance and sales, whether it's ops and your development team, like being able to spread that tribal knowledge makes the entire organization better, right? It makes the entire team better. This is also why I say this all the time on the show, but this is why CX and CS is a team sport. And several people have said that this week, right? It really, truly is a team sport. I think one of the biggest things that we all have to do as CX and CS leaders is fan those flames and really kind of find the right SMEs across different areas of the business that are going to be able to help with that, because that's a tall ask right there. What I just said is not an easy thing. It can take awesome companies years to get that really, really, really wired down. But it's one of the exciting parts of our space, guys, and this is one of the exciting parts of where we're going to go in the future with CX and CS.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I also think for the future of customer success, that the human component is not going to be eliminated or eradicated completely. Technology is great, wonderful, automates, makes your life easier. It's great for convenience, but at the end of the day, when someone is having a problem, especially if they've tried to do the troubleshooting on their own and they've bucked up on a roadblock, they want to know that when they get through to your company, that chatbot is not repeating the same statement 3-4 times, and that they can speak to a live human being who actually is knowledgeable about your product or service and that can fix their problem. So we do need humans still. Humans are not leaving this sphere anytime soon. And we want humans who exercise a high level of empathy, which in my experience, it doesn't come naturally. Not everybody has the ability to exercise empathy. And so in your organizations, you need to figure out ways in which you can strengthen your teams in that way, because I do believe that regardless of the department or the unit that you represent, empathy is one of those skills that you need if you're going to really be the future of customer success. You need to understand what your customers are going through, and you need to respond in a way that shows that you do understand, even if you've never had the experience yourself. You need to be able to communicate that to them in a way that shows that you care and that you value their business and that you understand. And, I go back to what Jim said this morning when he said that his company, gratitude is one of the things that he practices. And we really do all need to be grateful. The reality is that every business has competition. Your customers have choices. And the fact that they've made the choice to choose you is something that you should show gratitude for on a daily basis and find practical ways to show your customers that you are grateful that they've chosen you over and over and over again. Because as I'm sure many of you know, hence why we're here at a Churn Zero conference, right? It's way more expensive to attain new customers than to keep the ones that you have already. And so we want them to become walking evangelists, word of mouth advertisers of our business. And the only way they can do that is if they're really, really pleased with the product and service. How many of you have products that, you literally walk up and down every single day and you talk about it to anyone that you get the opportunity to talk to it about? You're so loyal to the product, there's nothing that no one could ever do to change your mind to switch and do another product. How many of you feel that way about a product that you currently? And so that's what you want your customers of your businesses to feel like all the time, because that's what's going to really ensure that your business is successful 10, 15, 20, 50 years from now. At the end of the day, you're looking for longevity. And it's not a marathon. It's the journey is long. There's no quick fix. There's nothing that we can say up here based on our experiences that will allow you to get there tomorrow or next week. But it's something that you just have to keep doing consistently. because it takes time and it takes effort.
Yeah, the power of promoters is huge, and it's funny that we've had some of these incredible guests come on the show, and they're running businesses that are absolutely crushing it. Right, they've got tons of happy customers. They're doing a phenomenal job of the revenue goals. And when I'm doing some of like the pre-show homework, I'll start to do some of the things that we talked about in the sessions this week. You'll do some of your discovery and your assessment of who they are, what they're doing, what some of their primary services are. And one of the things I always look at is feedback. I absolutely look at feedback all the time, whether it's G2, Capterra, Yelp, whatever your space is or whatever your industry niche kind of pushes feedback towards. And it's funny, there's a lot of times where I see those companies like, man, there's a small amount of feedback for a company that's financially crushing it. And I always, to Yanique's point here, I'm wondering, so when they're doing their customer portfolio reviews or when they're doing some of their CSM focus activities, is anybody like stopping and asking all those green customers to maybe just take like 30 seconds to like leave a review or give a little bit of feedback around what they love about it or what they could do different? I think that's such an easy thing as CX and CS leaders for us to think about. Same thing with the bad stuff. So like power promoters is fantastic. We were talking about it earlier in a session where we have a tendency, I think, as CX and CS leaders to look at like our detracting based feedback and some of our neutral based, because that's where I think, frankly, that's where all of us just like to live, is in that uncomfortable space. But many people have said it throughout the week. You've got to spend time looking at the good stuff, right? Number one, we spend all of our time at work primarily. We spend more time with our coworkers and our teams than we do with our family and our friends. But that good stuff is, man, if it's leveraged properly, that's gold, right? That's fuel. It's rocket fuel for growth. And then if you think about your friends on the sales side or the customer success side, that's the type of stuff that you want to be yammering about and talking about and kind of getting the rest of your users or your customers to be thinking about, because that's the stuff that's going to draw more people into your product or into your service space or into your business or into your portfolio. So just some thoughts for us to be thinking about as we leave Big Rig and we go back to running our own portfolios and managing our own customers and managing our own customer facing teams.
All right.
Was as you were just talking about that, something came top of mind for me in terms of partnering with other functions. When you're looking at that feedback, you're looking at some of that good feedback. Some of the founders that I've talked to, they've done a great job of coupling, that feedback with like a function like support, right? And so as you're going through tickets and you're showing the value that you're bringing to that base, you can tie that together, and that's usually that's a good synergy there.
Definitely. I mean, voice of customer task force and the ability to bring select SMEs or subject matter experts into that VOC task force is one of the easiest ways that you can really ignite innovation. The other thing too, and I know this is the second time I bring it up, but like for companies that are thinking about ways of getting better at the EX side of your game, right? And you're thinking about how do you keep your best ESMs on board? How do you keep some of your best CXers on board? That's an easy way to do it, right? People want to be involved in businesses and inside of organizations where they're required to think, they're required to act, they're given responsibility, maybe they're given accountability and authority to go tackle big projects. And Kenny, you're right, man. Like the ability to bring those people together, it makes your organization smarter. It makes you more innovative. And really, frankly, for the right types of people that you want on your staff or you want on your team, that's the type of stuff that keeps A players really, really cranked up and motivated to keep coming back every single day.
Yeah. And then just perfect segue for me. Appreciate that, Adrian. When it comes to, working with other functions, right? You can look just within your customer success function, and you want to make sure that there is diversity within your own team. I think that's very important. There was one or two sessions today. I think it was the BFF session where it was like you kind of get that group think a lot of times when you have these functions and everybody has the same mentality. You don't want that. You want to have a diverse team. And the reason why I bring that up is because, CS, for example, we've seen the numbers. CS is majority female, right? But as you go up through the ranks of the organizations, there's less representation from a gender perspective. And so, I just wanted to throw that out there. Having, a lens on the diversity of thought on your team, it's similar to that exercise we just laid out when it comes to how CS reacts to relationships with, marketing and product as well.
Yep. And depending on your customer base and your customer portfolio, Kenny, you're spot on where that's how you're making sure that you've got the right types of folks representing your customer base, right? Because most of us have pretty diverse customer bases, and most of us, outside of segmentation and outside of what our ICPs are. We've got people buying our products and spending money and deciding to work with us. So awesome points. So, okay, so then in terms of, I guess we're at the halfway point. Are there any questions just from some of the initial, because what Kenny and Yanique and I really wanted to do is, number one, we knew that we were closing up shop, so we wanted to make sure, we knew that we were gonna have a really vibrant, energetic group in this room, a bunch of people that were just chomping at the bit to get after it. But is there any questions before we dive into some of the other stuff that we're gonna chat through, or any ideas or anything that we kind of got people thinking about? There's one over here. You can yell. We can hear.
Awesome, thank you. What should customer success stop doing?
Ooh, that's a
Like-
good question.
Of all the wonderful things we love doing, what do we need to stop if we want to do all the fun future things you guys have talked about?
How should I put this? Not treating ourselves like we're grown-ups. I think one question that was asked, it was very surprising. It was in the ESG session. They asked who in the room has a customer success charter, and only like maybe 2.5 hands went up out of the whole room, right? And so those are some of the things. Customer success has been around for a while now, right? And so we're adults. Like, there's certain things that we can do to really stake our claim at the table, and it's those little things like that that are missing from a lot of organizations. There was a session today as well that was around, building the plane while you're flying it, right? And so yes, I'm plugging it for you. But those are some of the things, we understand you're building out this org. It's really hectic, right? And so you've done a great job getting it to a certain point. But as you look back, there's certain things like that you can do to really make sure that your organization is in a really good place to grow moving forward. So that's one of the things that is top of mind for me, that I'm seeing a lot of leaders put a little bit more focus on as they figure out how to put their CS organization at the top.
Yanique?
What should customer success not do?
Yeah.
Goodness. To answer your question, I suppose my greatest recommendation for what you should not do is to not get overwhelmed by all of the many different things that you're going to have to do. As the role evolves and more things are tacked onto it, and customer success becomes even more important in an organization, it gets the value that it deserves. It can become overwhelming. Customer experience and customer success is a part of any business, regardless of the industry. And I think at the end of the day, we don't want to get to the point where we're so overwhelmed that we lose focus on the fact that at the end of the day, we're here to ensure, as the name suggests, that our customers have success, whatever success may be for them. And it will vary depending on the client that you're serving. So that would be my recommendation, that what you should not do.
Yeah, and so to answer your question, at CXC, when we do some of our team-based assessments on that first pillar of team, one of the first things that we're looking for is, number one, just obviously mapping both the customer journey and the employee journey and understanding what that is. But we're immediately looking for 3 key areas. To your question for customer success, we're looking for like the major activities that CS is going to be accountable, responsible, and then have the authority for. And once you can identify those 3 areas, then somebody, whomever in your business is making that call, can start to do a bit of that capacity planning and that capacity management that Sheik and Jordan were talking about. Because until you have that, it's really, really difficult. And you can spend a ton of time doing time studies and cutting up all the different ways that your CX and your CS leaders and reps are managing their time. But like those 3 areas, once you identify that and you know where you want them spending 80% of their time or how they're driving 80% of their value, that's typically what we try to push people into. What do you not want them doing? It's going to come from that exercise, right? Because when you start doing that mapping or that blueprint, you start to see all the areas of overlap where you're like, wait a minute, I'm sorry, why do we have sales and why do we have onboarding, and who's doing like some of the IT or the technical support well, I'm doing everything. And all of us have seen these articles or read or listened to these podcasts about how eventually CX and CS becomes the catch-all. And a lot of times it is, especially in growth-focused businesses where you're trying to figure this stuff out and you haven't necessarily matured to the level of being able to break these things out and clarify those areas of accountability, responsibility, authority. But I'd say that's the first part, because every business is different. Every team is different. And then to Kenny's point and to Yanique's point, every CX or CS charter is going to be a little bit different. Every organizational mission and goal set is going to be a bit different. So you do have to factor that into the play to figure out sort of what you don't want your CX and your CS team thinking about or spending their time on.
So the three of you all have very different CS career backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to throw a wild card question of what is the most memorable customer experience that you had with one of your customers, and what did you learn from it, from all of the different career paths that you've had?
That's a good question. Who wants to take it?
One.
I have one. So one of the companies that I was helping to build in New York City was a white glove Airbnb called One Fine Stay. And basically we were doing home sharing, but for folks that had bigger budgets, right? So on the host side, these were people that knew that they could make potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars from their New York City brownstone. And then on the guest side, these were people that were comfortable spending $10,000 on 3 or 4 nights. So we had a very interesting customer base that me and my team were managing. And I'd say one of my favorite customer experiences, we had to manage host relations and guest relations. I would spend time with one of our hosts, who's one of our most valuable hosts, out in Brooklyn. And I would literally call it like, it'd be like my Thursdays out in Brooklyn, where I would go and I'd spend time and I'd understand, number one, all the things that were working for her as a host. But then I would really spend time understanding what her specific brownstone in Brooklyn, why it performed so well. And what I found, and one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite or my most memorable customer experiences is, like, number one, I spent a ton of time with this host, but she literally was helping to build and guide and point us towards what we had to do to achieve scale. And then the other thing too is she was a pioneer user. So, like, for some of our folks that are in the room that are still building their business and they haven't figured a lot of this stuff out, your pioneer users, whether it's a piece of SaaS technology or whether it's a service or whether it's a Willy or Where, are huge, right? So you want to spend as much time as possible. In my case, I got to spend more afternoons out in Brooklyn than I ever thought I would, but it was obviously really fun.
You want to answer from all three of us, right? Okay, so I guess the best customer experience, and I have many, would probably be my longest standing customer since I've been in business since 2009. And that would be with an insurance company. They're actually based in Barbados, but they have locations all throughout the Caribbean. And we implemented a service culture plan with them to change the culture of their organization. And we appointed service ambassadors in each unit, in each location, across the different business lines that they had. And it was just amazing to see how well, they literally took the role. The three functions or characteristics of the ambassador was that they must be fun, they must be enthusiastic, and they must be viewed as customer service role models by their peers. So not by their managers, but by their peers. And so we were able to identify who those persons were, and they literally were able to transform the organization. Because at the end of the day, our company goes in as consultants. We'll tell you what to do. We'll tell you what are some of the things you need to put in place. But you need to take that baton and run with it, because there has to be some level of sustainability after we leave the organization. So it was just really good to see that transform throughout the Caribbean and to see their scores increase, to see their customer feedback, and it was just an amazing experience.
Like that. For me, it would probably be my first experience going into a commercial customer success role. I started out my career as a technical coder, sitting behind 2 monitors all day. I loved it. It was amazing. But, I got the opportunity to go out to one of my clients that I was preparing the data for with our CS team. And that was really kind of what got me hooked into the experience, going out, having the conversation with them, seeing what pieces of the data they actually resonated with them. And so that first experience is what really got me hooked and got me on the path that I'm down now.
One last thing before we jump on this is what all three of us just said that I'm realizing is, like, ride-alongs or customer hangouts.
Yeah.
Man, that's the best. Number one, it's fun. Number two, you become indispensable to your business when you were the guy or the gal who knows how to go talk with customers, have fun, learn stuff, and then bring it back to your business or your organization and storytell on it, right? That is an invaluable skill to have. And then the other thing too is just like that's one of the easiest ways that you understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, and then you can really drive your innovation forward from there.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I have this question. So we have two camps, right? One is product-led growth, and the other is customer-led growth. My question really is, how do we blend these two things in? For example, for companies like we at Sineasy, we are not just growing, but we're also seeing a big shift in the customer base that we have. We're moving away from SMB to mid-market enterprise. So I really just want to know how to kind of blend product-led and customer-led growth together.
I think for me, so I love the question. I ask this all the time on the podcast. I love hearing how people answer this differently. Again, number one, I think every business and every executive team has a wildly different answer. So I'll start that. But I think it kind of goes back to some of the stuff that Abby and Ali were talking about earlier, right? Where like, if you can start to marry your customer facing side or your customer focused teams with your product side and your tech side, and then minimally you set that cadence around whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever you guys can do. I think that's one of the fastest places to start. But there's one other piece that alone I don't think will do it. And from a lot of the folks that I chat with, you do need to have some of the knowledge sharing too, right? Because if you have a bunch of devs come into like a CS or a support function, and they have the tendency to want to dissect and understand and engineer and figure out all these different possibilities. But the folks that are sitting on the customer side, they're like, no. The customers want two things, right? They don't want all this other stuff. They're asking for the thing to work the first time. So I think it's just a product of teasing out that relationship within your business. And then I think it's really important to have a few champions on both sides that are going to be forced to work together. For us at CXC, with our clients, we call it our voice of customer task force. It's the easiest ways we can blend product-focused individuals, sales-focused individuals, success-focused individuals together so that they're really kind of building and engineering solutions from more of a holistic view.
Yeah. So ditto to what he said, and I think you should have gone to Ali and Abby's session. I was there, and everything that you just asked, they covered. It. So the presentations are going to be in Wova. I would strongly suggest you download them.
They had a much better answer than what I just did.
Right? It was very detailed, and I mean, they literally went into, literally how you can merge the two. They had a template there. They had recommendations of, how often you should meet. It was extremely detailed, and I think their presentation would answer that question completely. All right.
I hope I can even ask this question. Okay, so this is my first Turn Zero conference and relatively new in customer success. Our company's relatively new, probably about 3 years going in. And I guess what I haven't heard yet is a way to solve the problem that I think we have. So we roughly have 40,000 customers. And our customers can roughly use, and we have like 40 products. And our customers can use multiples of those products. And I don't know how we can, y'all speak to the CSMs should be experts in the products and know everything about the products. But when they're servicing their customers, because we segment them from small, medium, large, when they're serving them, but they're still using so many products, it's really not possible for them to be experts in them all. So I don't know how to still build that one-on-one relationship with, the customer when we have such voluminous.
I think, the place that my mind immediately goes to with that is going to be the power of the playbook. For a company like that, your ability to curate incredible, usable, digestible content in the form of a playbook. Turn Zero has playbooks, right? All of your CRM probably has playbook capacity. Or you can even just start with Google Docs, right? Like, especially if you're small and it's 40,000 is a lot and 40 products is a lot too. But it sounds to me like you might have to get into the world where you literally do playbooks per product, or you do playbooks per segment base. So if you know on the 40,000 which the tendency is going to be to go to one of the 40 or 5 of the 40, you might have to build almost like segment focused type of playbooks that allow your reps to at least be able to talk the talk and at least be able to walk the walk, or at least be able to bring them through some of the the initial stages that customer, that user is going to kind of go through. That's the first place that I have.
Right. I would go with the first session that I sat in yesterday, community. I spoke about it this morning. I think it's really powerful. Your customers that have used your products already, one of the things that Erin spoke about was the community can also be used to guide you as to how to use the product, especially if they're not aware of how the product works. You know, what works well, what doesn't work well. If you have a problem, what should you do? So yes, your team I know you want to get them up to speed to be subject matter experts in all the products, but in lieu of that, the community can actually serve to provide that feedback to your customers as well, because who best to learn from than somebody that has used it already and has the experience and the exposure. So if you can build out a great community platform, and HighLogic seems to have the expertise to do that, then I think that would be a good way for you to kind of segment into getting to where you want to go.
And leverage community for playbooks too. There's not enough companies that are taking the very best of what your community is saying and bringing it straight into your playbooks. It's the easiest way of being able to take some of that customer intel and bring it straight into your work camp for your team.
Yeah,
Powerful. SMEs, subject matter experts. It sounds like that's a lot of customers and a lot of products. And so I wonder if who in your company is a power user, somebody who can really speak to that and really just going to those individuals and figuring out like HighLogic, using some of those tools out there to make it easier. Take it piece by piece. Like that's a lot of products, so you're not going to do that all at once anyways. And I like your idea of the products that the customers are going to, the 4 or 5, focusing on that and just tunnel vision on those. And then, as you build it out, you're building it as the plane is flying, right? Like, leverage some of those and small wins, celebrate them. Celebrate all the small wins as you go along this process, and you'll end up in a good spot.
I got a question for you guys as podcasters. Are you still learning after 150, 200? Are you still learning things? What are you learning now after speaking with so many experts? And then 2, what makes a great conversation for you? Like, what is it when you're done? You're like, oh, that was great. And what makes the difference between that and boring conversation?
So I'll go first in this, Yuman. I think number 1, absolutely still learning. So, and then definitely like podcasters are lying to you if they're not telling you that selfishly, that is one of the best reasons to have a podcast. You get to go talk to folks that normally don't want to pick up your sales call or don't want to have a conversation with you, don't want to hear about whatever it is that you're doing. So number 1, it's been a phenomenal way to learn. For me, I think as we kind of got closer to 200 episodes, the best guests understand how to play conversational ping pong. Because the reality is they could be the CEO of a $100 million company and they could have all the answers in their space, in their organization. But I think why so many of us are drawn to podcasting and why it's become one of the most popular modalities for learning in today's world is sometimes they like hearing what Yanique says with all these different episodes. Sometimes they like hearing how Kenny takes Yuman's point or his feedback and breaks it down in a different type of way. So I think for me, some of the absolute best guests that we have are ones that they go back and forth. They let you go back and forth. And obviously Candor. Candor's awesome. When we had Abby on the show, she did an incredible job of not only highlighting her customer-focused business leader journey and all the things that she went through, but she did a phenomenal job of talking about all the awesome things that the Churn Zero team is doing, not only internally, but some of the challenges that they were facing with your guys' early users. And then as you graduated, as the business evolved, she talked about the learnings and the wins. So Candor is the next piece. So being able to play conversational ping pong and then Candor, those are like 2 elements that make for a phenomenal podcast and conversation.
Mm-hmm. I love podcasting. I love to talk.
I think all 3 of us do.
So when I used to go to school in Jamaica, prep school and high school, every report that I got, my parents used to say, the report says, Yanique is a great student, but she talks too much, right? But I love to talk. And when I found this new medium, podcasting, in 2016, and I hired a podcast coach to launch the podcast, it was a great experience. So I enjoy interviewing people. It definitely is a learning experience each time because each guest comes with their own personality, their own set of experiences, their own journey, and that brings value to my audience. What makes a good conversation is a guest who has personality and energy. And you'll hear it. You'll hear it in my energy if I'm really into the conversation. So let's say, for example, there's a high level of emotion. I think emotion has it plays a very integral part in the conversation. So if I get a guest that's, I feel that connection emotionally, like there is that synergy, there is that energy. It's almost like I could be talking to that person for 5-6 hours. And ideally, I need to keep it within 20 to 30 minutes because I think I was sharing with someone earlier that when I started podcasting, we were doing 45-minute episodes, and I realized that based on the listening, it was people are dropping off like after 20, 30 minutes. And the reality is people just don't have the time. Even though it's something that you can do while you're doing something else like cooking or walking your dog or exercising at the gym, you still need a bit of time that doesn't take too much of a chunk out of someone's day. So we've cut the episodes down to 20 to 30 minutes intentionally. But as I said, the guests that we get, and I'm very intentional about the guests that I get at least 20 emails per day, people asking if they think this person would be a good fit for my podcast, which is great. I mean, I think I have like 150 to go through after I leave here tomorrow. But I have to be very intentional about the people that I interview on the podcast to ensure that they're meeting the criteria. It's someone that's interesting. A lot of them, they've written books and they want to promote the books. So they use the podcast as a medium to get that across. But I find that if they have great personality, that the conversation goes that much easier. Even though we give them a conversation flow, I don't follow it verbatim. I go according to the energy that comes between me and that individual. And that's what kind of propels the conversation.
Yeah, I would say for me, podcasting is it's been something that I've grown into. Made some mistakes along the way. A lot of podcasters, they start out just on Zoom, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then you build it from there. And so for me, the most exciting part is just to the energy that you were talking about. Finding the guests, but then also making sure that I structure the conversation where they just want to talk about their business. And that's what I want to make sure that the focus is on. I do like talking, but I'm also somebody who likes to listen. And so I'll let the founder go off on their little tangents at times and then pull them back in. And that's the part, like you said, that back and forth, that podcasting, that's a real skill that it just takes time to kind of hone that. But podcasting, and this is something like when you do it and how many episodes they have, like you got to love it. Like this isn't something, most people, they start a podcast, 2 episodes in, they're like, I'm done with this. I can't do this. So, when you take that step and you just keep recording and episode after episode, looking at your metrics and making those changes, that's quite the thrill. Like that's the exciting part too as well.
All right. Well, we did say that we wanted to get you out of here
That's
early.
exactly what we said. We figured last.
So we're going to keep true to our word. If you have no more questions or comments, we encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. And we wish you all the best on your customer success journey. We wish you a safe journey home back to your, the states that you live or the countries that you live. And I thank you again, Churn Zero, for taking the time to give us
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Amazing.